Hello, myself Sunil Ramakrishnan. Here basically we are discussing 142 number formula part. Formula basically is the formula basically of the project management plan, that is basically PMP. That is basically actual cost comes into picture, EC, then earned value comes into picture, CPI comes into picture, SPI comes into picture, and many parameters are there which comes into the picture. So here basically we are discussing that how deeply formulas are connected with each other. So in deeply basically we can say that each and every formula attributes, they are basically connected with thousands of hundreds of balance sheet basically, and it's minimum basically hundreds of balance sheet they are connected. So, and to create one balance sheet basically the accounts department know basically up to what level the basically hard work has to be done. So basically, here we have been discussing how deeply the formulas are connected, and how deeply the formula basically are going to be connect, and how basically it's going to impact the entire business structure. Basically, you can say that is basically the project management plan, PMI, basically PMBOK, basically the company basically who designed the project management plan document. So they basically have designed the project management plan, and they have taken each and every balance sheets in each and every attributes basically. That's why basically the software company is earning lots of money basically. If they are not taken, then basically software company might be in big loss. Big means very very big loss, and this might impact the entire US software structure also, because the software industry, that means basically it's connected with directly with the United States of America. So, and the balance sheets basically, each and every accounting department basically, that mostly are basically connected with European country and Indian accounting department, because the chartered accountancy degree basically, that basically is created by India. And India say in India country only basically the each and every accounting departments are thinking up to deeply level, and the another department is, that is basically another country, that is basically the European country. They have their own formats of the accounting, but they also do the accounting up to the very deep level. And this group basically can understand the deepness of the each and every formulas, and each and every formulas are connected with the attributes, and attributes are connected with the hundreds of balance sheet. So this all balance sheet mostly basically might not be created by the one country, and it might be possible that each and every there might be, for example, 100 balance sheets are there. So there it might possible that 100 country might be creating this balance sheet. So it's not that the one country might is correct. For example, AC, actual cost. So actual cost basically, when you can input the actual cost parameter, that basically the whatever number you enter, that is connected with the thousand hundreds of balance sheet, and that hundreds of balance sheet are created by the hundreds of countries basically, you can say. So one country might be creating one balance sheet, another country might be creating another balance sheet. So you can just imagine the deepness level basically, you can say. And one more example I have taken, that is basically United States of America. When he visits he's visiting any country, for example, each and every visit basically cost around 1,000 crore dollar. So that 1,000 crore dollar also basically is added in the software cost basically. So whenever you will be adding the software cost, you will be calculating the software cost and giving to the customer. That basically cost contains the United States of America cost also, the United States of America's president's cost also, and that basically you can't track with. Why? Because it's in small dollars, not less than $1. Basically, you can say that. Basically, you can say $0.22, $0.21, $0.20, $0.19, $0.18. So like this, basically the amounts are getting calculated. So for example, he visited 10 times many countries. So that basically 10 time country visited, he basically is segregating the cost to the different areas. Like one cost basically he given to the website department, one cost he is given to the WordPress department, one cost is given to the .NET department, one cost is given to the database department, and in database there are many database. So one cost is given to the Oracle department, one cost he is given to the Microsoft department, one cost he is given to the MySQL department. but it's a free basically MySQL nowadays. So there is no giving the cost to the MySQL. Everything give the cost, each and every cost is just give to the Microsoft and Oracle, because MySQL is free basically. So like this basically Microsoft uh, internal department basically might be knowing that, yeah, basically if American president is visiting the each and every country, that cost basically by default is we have to add to the customers only. So like this the end customers basically you can say United States of America's customers are who? Most of basically they are Indian software companies, because Amazon is a AWS, and AWS everybody knows basically AWS structure. We have already discussed actually about the AWS. It's connected with the thousands of servers, and AWS says that we have the each and every roadmaps of internet roadmap that is basically inside the internet gas pipeline, and we have the each and every roadmaps of the each and every countries, that when the countries are going to serve these websites, like this basically each and every roadmaps have they. So they basically have the cost also. So they also basically adds the each and every expenses basically. So like this the Amazon is also there, and Amazon is basically also connected with the 190 country. So Amazon is basically telling that we are also dividing the American president expense to the 190 country, because 190 countries are using the software company software also. So who are basically the countries basically who are using the software. So each and every expenses are basically getting added to that countries only. That is basically by default it's going to come to the customers only, that are basically, for example, there is one CRM project created. So CRM project created, that means the database cost, the deployment cost, the services cost, each and every cost basically are going to be added in the uh, each and every cost are basically by default going to added into the customers in the customers head only basically you can say. So like this the United States of America basically have one admin department also, who keeps the each and every track of, because you can just imagine if there is a hundreds of balance sheet just in the one actual cost. So you can just imagine basically the departments also basically connected with these hundreds of balance sheet. There are by default basically admin department, by default the accounts department, by default the accounts department print basically to handle the balance sheet of the hundreds of balance sheet. It's not possible to, the normal person basically can't do that. Senior accountant also basically it's not possible to handle this type of thing, because lots of things requires the permissions basically. For example, chartered accountant groups basically can see few parameters from the European softwares, but the normal accountant, that is basically the senior level at departments, senior level accountant, they can't see the parameters. Why? Because there is a restriction of the degrees basically, yes. That is basically the chartered accountant degree, which is provided by the Indian government, and they have given the permission to the chartered accountant groups basically, that you can see this detailed amount. For example, the American president expense, where they are basically getting adjusted, that basically the chartered accountant department they can see, but the senior accounting person basically who don't have the degree, he can't see that data. So it's basically the display. For example, one person told that I can't see your resume. So he basically, I was also shocked. Basically, if I can see my resume, then how basically that person can't able to see that resume in the Naukri.com. So Naukri.com has basically highlighted my resume so that the few people only can able to see the resume basically, and they have returned the money also back, and they are told that we can't give you the job, and like this also lots of things the story says. That is basically my story. And Naukri.com basically told that I paid basically money to the Naukri.com, and Naukri.com told that we basically can't give you the job. So like this basically they have told that, and one person told that I can't see your resume also. So you can just imagine the partiality, because I don't have so too much of degree. That might be also the problem. BCom degrees, there is no value in the IT industry. Like this, basically, the Naukri.com is telling that, because they have given the resume back. So, and that 22 years experience basically I have, and this much of knowledge basically I have. There is no value of this much of knowledge, this all knowledge also. The Naukri.com groups are telling like that. So that is basically personal stuff, that are basically the personal thing basically. But this all knowledge, or basically this type of knowledge basically, that is not enough for the software company to get give the job to Sunil R. Nair. So like this, basically the hundreds of balance sheets are basically connected with the one actual one attributes, and like this basically the each and every balance sheets of the software company, that is basically approved by the Indian government also. So just see the plan level basically of the expenses, which is basically covered by the each and every country's government basically. So for example, there are two balance sheet which is created in the India, because two time basically the American president visited the India. So two balance sheet basically has given to the India country to create. So like this basically the adjustment of the each and every country, just see basically, because this basically nobody can track this. It's not possible to track also basically. So like this the Indian government also approved that balance sheet, and each and every expenses basically of the cost basically by default it's going to increase, because the American president visit in the India basically two times. That expense that are basically, for example, thousand crore two time basically, thousand crore dollar two time basically he has come. So that's basically $2,000 crore, 2000 crore dollar basically you can say. So that amount basically is going to adjust in the software company, and that basically accounts department do, because the accounts department, in the accounts department normal accountant person can't do basically, because that required the signature, that required the lots of contacts with the Indian government, because you have to sign lots of require the lots of sign. For example, you are creating one balance sheet, there are thousands of attributes basically. So each and every attributes requires the permission, that requires the sign from the Indian government, that basically American president had visited this hotel. So that expenses basically is and what are the things basically he has used, what are the services basically he has used there. So each and every services basically are going to be costed. So like this each and every things was basically calculated, and like this each and every things basically why he used these services, what was the reason behind that, that are basically all the user stories. Because why? Because it's a user story. For example, United States of America is connected with the software industry. They basically have the business of the software. So for example, there is one steel basically, steel energy basically. For example, in India basically there are 1 lakh crore kilogram steel basically are getting used in India. So United States of America is telling that we have got the contract of steel energy, which is basically going to generate from the steel, and that data basically we are collecting, and we are basically passing to the each and every energy companies and the power companies and the nuclear power company. So like this basically the steel energy contract basically has given by the Indians or Indian government to the USA basically USA government. That's why basically he was using that steel basically some services. He was basically connected with that one hotel, and there basically he was using the lots of steel materials basically. That's why basically, so just see basically if America president is using the steel, so basically they whatever task they do basically, that basically just connected with the money basically you can say. Because they are basically, they actually know basically there are basically 1 lakh crore steel basically getting used in the India, and that energy basically has to be collected. So that energy basically is going to generate, basically that energy is going to generate, assume that it's going to generate vegetables, and that vegetable is going to generate the English communication skill basically. So whenever you are going to use that vegetable, and that vegetable, when you consume that vegetable, then basically after certain time basically, when you read the English, when you communicate the English, your English basically automatically lets good communicate, it converts to the good communication. Why? Because the steel energy basically, which has created, which has generated, the American government is saying that we have came into conclusion that the English basically, when you are going to communicate the English, after taking that vegetables, their English is are going to be become little bit good basically. So like this, you can just imagine the each and every uh, each and every energy structure also basically you can say. So like this basically Americans government is telling that we have each and every structure of the education level also. Like for example, if you are eating that food, then basically your mathematics is going to become, math is going to become very powerful. If you are eating that food basically, then your formulas are going to become good. If you are going to eat that ice cream, then basically your history is going to create good. If you are going to have that drink basically, that is basically assume that that wine basically, which is created by the European country, then basically your um, body structure is going to become good. So basically your body structure is going to become give a good charm basically you can say. So like that basically each and every objects are basically connected. So like this basically you can say that each and every softwares are also connected, because um, USA basically is telling that we are basically into the software industry, and we are handling the software, each and every software in this world basically you can say. So we have the control of each and every software in this world basically you can say. For example, one software, CRM software, it's generating ion energy, and after that collecting the data of the ion energy, that is going to convert to the ion, and that software basically daily is going to generate around 100 kilogram of iron. So you can just imagine the data processing power also, and the server process also. For example, there are 22 types of server basically, of the 22 companies server. One is IBM, Microsoft, Compaq. Like this, basically there are 22 servers, and each and every server basically is going to give production. For example, you are using this server. Just taking as an example, that if you are using that server, then basically it's going to generate 100 kilogram of the 100 kilogram of the iron from that software. If you are using that software, then basically it's going to generate 200 kilogram of the iron basically. So like this basically the servers also are connected, because servers each and, for example, to create one server also only, for example, IBM server, to create one types of one of the model IBM server, it takes basically 100 city basically creation. So like this for example, I will take one more example. For example, there is one text box that is basically created from thousands of cities. So that does not mean that that entire thousand cities is fully allocated to the text box. It might be possible that that city, some area basically might be using by the some iron in energy, that another area might be using by the steel energy, another area might be using by the some internet energy department. So like this basically assume that each and every city, when it gets creates, around 22 services basically gets activated. Sir, 22 service basically gets activated, 22 areas basically gets activated, like text box is one area. So like this is about the 142 number part. And in one, this is also basically connected with the Bollywood industry, because Bollywood industry says that we are creating the user stories. For example, one city is going to create that city's user story, that is basically the city is going to generate which type of environment in the world, that basically the Bollywood industry knows. For example, Vadodara city. So Vadodara city is going to generate which energy, which story, that basically Bollywood industry knows.